Hey, and welcome to another TRP Tech Talk. I'm Dave, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install a bottom bracket, the chainring, and the crank to TRP's new Evo drivetrain. So, to get started, here's the tools that you're going to need. A bearing press with appropriate adapters, a 10mm Allen, a 2mm Allen, a ratchet, a torque wrench capable of 50 Newton meters, a 10mm socket, a bottom bracket tool, green Loctite, grease, clean rags, and nitrile gloves. So to get started, you can see I put on some gloves to keep my hands kind of nice and clean, just be dealing with some Loctite and some grease today. First things first, you're gonna take your bottom bracket. Now this beautiful Commencal Tempo happens to use a PF92, so I have TRP's new PF92 bottom bracket right here, hence the green Loctite. We'll get to that in a minute. So first off, you're going to take your bottom bracket press, and I'm gonna actually install that bottom bracket onto that press tool right there. I'm also gonna take the other side of the bottom bracket and the other piece of that tool. I'm gonna actually put those together. This is gonna get inserted through the frame. Now, I've made sure to put the sleeve on the right-hand cup. The cups are identical. We'll put the sleeve on the right hand to keep it there. Go ahead and hand press that bottom bracket onto that non-drive side, and then just get your press started while trying to keep these as square as possible. I'm going to get that first thread, and then there we go. So now I've got that started. I'm just gonna get that snug, and this is where I'm going to double check that the bottom bracket is square to the bottom bracket shell. I'm gonna take a little bit of our green Loctite here, and then this is also where the rag can come in handy. You can kind of clean that up, make sure you're not making a mess. And just apply a little bit of green Loctite to each one of these cups. And I just did a little squirt there, and I'm gonna actually go ahead and just make sure I get it 360 degrees around. The green Loctite is a gap filler. It's not necessarily a thread compound. So when that dries, it'll fill up any gaps, but these are nicely press fit. So, all right, so now that that's all done, we're gonna go ahead and take our bottom bracket press and just press those bearings into the frame. I can see they're going in nice and square. This is great. They're not crooked. It's not taking me a ton of effort, and I'm just gonna get that snug and inspect that the bottom bracket lip is sitting flush to all 360 degrees of the shell, the bottom bracket shell. Go ahead and just clean off any excess. If there is any, no problem whatsoever. Okay, that's as easy as it is to install a PF92 bottom bracket. We're gonna go ahead and remove our bearing press and remove the two pieces as well. Put that away for safekeeping later. Next is gonna be the chainring. Before we get to the crank, gotta make sure the crank has a chainring. Go ahead and take that lock ring off the crank and make sure that that silver washer stays with the lock ring. Shouldn't go anywhere. Next, we're gonna take the chainring. I'm gonna actually take a little bit of grease, and I'm gonna go around the interface here of the spline and the face of that interface as well, and just kind of clean up my fingers a little bit. Now, personally, I like to make sure that that TRP logo and the TRP logo on the crank are parallel to each other. So I'm gonna make sure that those line up just like so. And then I'm just gonna simply push that down. I'm also going to take a little bit of grease and put it onto the threads of the lock ring. Make sure I get a proper torque and that these things don't seize up in the future. Go ahead and get the lock ring started just by hand onto the crank arm. And then using a bottom bracket tool, we're gonna go ahead and get this guy threaded all the way down, and then we're just gonna snug it up. Once that's snug, I'm gonna actually take my same bottom bracket tool and a torque wrench. Now this is set to 40 Newton meters. I'll set that to 40. Get my bottom bracket tool installed, and I'm gonna go ahead and snug and torque that. So now that you've got your chainring installed, we can go ahead and get the non-drive side arm installed into the bottom bracket. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure that the preload adjuster is all the way bottomed out next to the crank arm. I'm also gonna take a little bit of grease, and we're gonna grease the interfaces where the spindle will meet the bearings. We don't need to grease the middle of it. As you can see, it's kind of recessed. You can also grease the splines and the threads as well. With all that greased up, make sure that's bottomed out. Also make sure that your dust seal that's on the bottom bracket is still installed on the bottom bracket. It just kind of sticks there with a little bit of grease. And we can take our non-drive side arm, stick it through the bottom bracket, and make sure that that's fully seated. Now take your drive side arm, and using a 10mm Allen, making sure those are perpendicular to each other, facing the opposite directions, we can go ahead and get the drive side arm started. Okay, and go ahead and just using that 10mm, make sure that we get it nice and snug. Okay, but before we tighten it fully down, we're going to take our torque wrench again, put on our 10mm Allen bit, and we're going to make sure that this is set to 50 Newton meters, 50. So set to 50 Newton meters, make sure that's fully seated. We can torque that down to 50. Last but not least, after this crank's installed, we want to take our 2mm Allen wrench and we want to turn the preload adjuster so that it's just taking up that space. You can see where the preload adjuster is coming out, coming in contact with the bottom bracket dust cover, and you don't need to snug this down very much. Just needs to touch. Just take up that space, and then using our 2mm Allen, we're going to tighten the preload adjuster just enough so that the two plastic edges touch, and then that's all you need. So the torque spec on that is pretty much immeasurable. Just make sure that the two edges touch, and then there you have it. You've installed your new TRP bottom bracket, chainring, and Evo crank. So, thanks for watching, everyone. I really hope this was helpful. If it was, go ahead and click that like button down below. And if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and comment or hit up our customer service team. And for more content like this, make sure to subscribe and check out our website, trpcycling.com. Thanks, and we'll catch you next time.